Welcome everyone to today's webinar on how prevention providers as well as youth benefit from prevention plus wellness programs, training, webinars, etc. This is a new webinar offered by Prevention Plus Wellness located here in beautiful St. Augustine, Florida. I'm Dr. Shelley Worsham, the president and founder, and thank you so much for joining us for this 1 hour webinar. Everyone who's attending will receive a CE or CEU certificate for 1 hour for spending time with us. You'll also get a PDF of these slides, and we are recording this session. I'll send you a link to the recording. Please do share widely the PDF, share widely the link so that other people in your region, your state, your nation can learn more about the good things that we're doing here at Prevention Plus Wellness. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. I don't think this is going to be a whole hour, so I'm going to just say this. If you have questions, if you have comments, if anything's not clear, find your toolbar. It's either in the top or bottom of your screen. Locate that little more heading, M-O-R-E, put your cursor at that, you'll find the chat space, and you can type in any question or comment that you'd like. So this is your hour, so you're welcome to share what you know, what you would like to know relevant to substance use prevention and wellness with youth and young adults in your region. So 3 objectives for today's session, as you can see what they are today. So what we're going to do, first of all, is we're going to view what prevention and health providers, professionals, found helpful when they participated in our webinars like today, our free webinars, which we provide on a weekly basis, as well as our paid online program implementer and train-the-trainer workshops. So we'll look at that. We'll also look at number 2, exploring how youth health behavior outcomes, we'll explore youth behavior outcomes from participating in various prevention plus wellness programs, the data that we've collected over the years. And then thirdly, we'll examine how prevention providers like you and your organization are using and benefiting from prevention plus wellness in your region. So let's go ahead and start out by looking at some published data, and more broadly, and then we'll sort of narrow down and focus targeting prevention plus wellness. But let's first of all take a look at a little bit about what we know about the effectiveness of screening and brief interventions. That's SBI. There was a great review of interventions, and again, I love reviews because reviews synthesize a bunch of studies. And so what you had here in this study published in 2015 was a review of the effectiveness of screening and brief interventions, particular to adolescents and young adults. And this review found that screening and brief interventions were effective for up to a year later. Another finding of that review was that screening and brief interventions that had goal planning, which all prevention plus wellness screening and brief interventions include, were particularly effective. So good news, because again, screening brief intervention is effective for up to a year after that brief intervention for both adolescents and young adults. We've also conducted research of our own prevention plus wellness program, particularly sport. That's the alcohol drug PPW program for youth, I should say, and InShape alcohol drug PPW program for young adults. And there was some data that showed for both of them effects. There were some effects even a year after those single session brief interventions. Can't get much briefer than a single session. And there was a really good article, a review type of an article that highlighted the fact that brief interventions hold great promise for reaching a wide range of youth in diverse settings, primarily because of the brevity, but for other reasons as well, but primarily that brevity, that they really can have a public health reach and reach almost all youth in your organization, your region, your state, your nation. Unlike or as compared to, more intensive or lengthier interventions. Now let's take a look at the research that we have published on the effectiveness of the single session sport. That's the alcohol drug prevention plus wellness screening and brief interventions. There were articles published in these scientific journals. These are peer-reviewed articles. And I'm just going to summarize on one page the key findings of the outcomes from the single session sport prevention plus wellness program. It was found to significantly decrease a number of alcohol use measures, including initiation quantity, frequency, binge drinking, and even alcohol problems, while significantly increasing physical activity among participating youth. Now remember, these are randomized control trials. Youth are randomized to receive the single session sport or comparison to control group, baseline data collected, follow-up data collected, even data collected a year later. Number 3, reduce cigarette smoking, and with some of those effects even a year later after the single session program. Number 4, reduce binge drinking, smoking, marijuana use, and increased physical activity among drug-using youth even a year later. So the sport program, even though it's a universal prevention intervention designed for all youth, regardless of risk level, regardless of whether they're participating in sports or anything like that, don't be confused by that name sport. The focus is really on wellness behaviors, promoting wellness behaviors and preventing alcohol and drug use. This particular study, or some of our data, some of our studies that we reported, show that even larger effect sizes for high-risk youth, particularly those already using substances. Number 5, we saw an increase in parent youth communication. Number 6 was a very unique study where we looked at 3 of the 4 parent flyers, which are just an additional intervention included in all sport PPW programs. And we found that in this particular study, the youth of the parents who received these 3 flyers, the youth were found to reduce alcohol use problems, marijuana use, and increased youth and parent communication. Lastly, under number 7, we had sport translated into Turkish language, and it was implemented in a controlled trial in Istanbul, with the effect showing kids that received sport improved indices of physical activity, nutrition, sleep, and even mental health, which shows really the rigor or the breadth or the potential of the screening and brief intervention that we call prevention plus wellness, cutting across even as diverse a culture as Turkey. So results not just in the United States, but in a completely different culture. Let's take a look at the results from our second evidence-based screening and brief intervention called InShape. This is for young adults. We had studies that were conducted and published in these 4 scientific journals, and again, refereed reviews of those data before they were published. And this is a summary of the outcomes from the InShape program. It was found the single session alcohol drug prevention plus wellness program significantly reduced the frequency and heavy use. I think that's really important because of the potential for harm and health effects. Heavy use of alcohol use, reduced drinking and driving even a year after the program was provided to young adults. Reduced initiation quantity and heavy use, again, of marijuana. Of course, heavy use of any substance increases the risk for physical and mental health issues. As well, this InShape program is found to increase sleep, exercise, health, and nutrition, improved social and spiritual health-related quality of life, and improved body image satisfaction among participating young adults. So after these papers were published, then and only then did the sport and InShape prevention plus wellness program get listed on a number of evidence-based registries. Some of these are national, federal, some are actually statewide, and these programs, sport and InShape screening brief interventions, continue to be added to different evidence-based registries over time, including the very good one, Blueprints for Healthy Development, NREP, which is now defunct. That was their federal registry, etc. Let's continue. Now let's broaden again and take a look at a little bit more research with regard to this idea of multiple risk behavior interventions. Are they effective? Are they more effective, equally effective than narrowly focused prevention interventions? In other words, a program that might focus on just preventing marijuana or alcohol, or preventing or trying to increase physical activity. We do know from, again, a review, which I think is great because you're looking at multiple intervention evaluations. A great review was published in 2018, which showed that decreased adolescent substance use was associated with one-time multiple health consultations in group sessions. So you just sort of reverse that or flip that so it makes more sense. One-time multi-health consultations in group sessions were found to be associated with decreased adolescent substance use. That's why these researchers concluded that school-based interventions targeting multiple risk behaviors, 2, 3, 4, or more, can be effective and efficient in preventing youth substance use. So good data on that, on multiple risk behavior interventions. So we've looked a little bit about the effectiveness of screening and brief interventions. We looked at the effectiveness of multiple behavior interventions. We looked at the data that we've collected over the years on prevention plus wellness, screening and brief interventions that are address multiple risk behaviors. Now, let's take a look at more recent data that we've collected really with the help of you, prevention providers, wellness professionals throughout the country, and particularly across the country, and see what you said about using these participating in prevention plus wellness webinars, online training, outcomes from programs, etc. So let's start first of all with online training. Now we're doing more online training, particularly since COVID, but we still do some and expect to increase this, I suspect, coming soon with when we have a little better handle on the pandemic, doing more on-site training. So the on-site training, there's two options. We can come to your site and provide training for you as a certified program implementer or trained the trainer. And we can come to your site to do that. And that can be very efficient. And that can be done within a single day. In fact, we can do program implementer training and train the trainer all in one day. So it becomes very efficient, very feasible host training. The other thing we can do, and this is what's we're doing a little bit more of during COVID, and that is we can train one or more of your staff as a trainer, and then that person could train other staff members or other providers in your region to implement prevention plus wellness programs. So that's the model. Other than that, though, we really, there are certainly some benefits to the online training. It's very brief, it's only 2 hours. So it's very efficient, very practical. And there's actually 2 different models for this training. So the one we do more of is smaller group online training so that we can tailor it. It's live, we can take your questions, we can make sure that we address all the content, particularly for your organization and your use. And that's what we do more of. The other kind of training is a little bit larger, kind of webinar training, where we just open it up and and get everybody's sense of things. So we can cover the content. We can have some communication webinars like this webinar, but it does reduce communication, and it's usually just through the chat option. So let's get back on track and let's take a look at what prevention and health specialists said about participating in our online program implementer training. Bottom line, they found it very useful, but this is the 2-hour program implementer training, and we provide a link to offer us a confidential post-training evaluation, and here are the results from that evaluation. And generally, pretty good feedback we get, which is 90% of participants that took the online training and reported to us liked the training a great deal to a lot. 90% said they found it extremely or very helpful. 90% also said that current level of comfort with implementing the program was a lot. That was very good. 100% said they had a great deal of confidence. They could present their program with a high level of enthusiasm and passion, which is so very important, particularly when implementing a program in a group and online. And lastly, number 500% said they were a great deal or a lot confident that they could accurately follow the protocol in our program manuals or the scripts in our program manuals. So really good feedback. It was positive. It indicated that the training was, was helpful, was useful. And this is our online 2-hour training. And again, this was from those tailored kinds of trainings, smaller groups where we had nice discussions and we're able to tailor the training and have good interaction with the trainees and myself as the trainer. What did these individuals like best about the online training? Well, you can see some of these things. There's some good feedback about the training, and again, generally very positive. There was, I would say to you, by the way, the negative comments or the comments for improvement are actually more useful for us. And so what I'm showing here are largely the more positive feedback. What did you like best? I can't think, but I can tell you for the training, the online training, I think the only negative aspect that really showed up was that there was a feeling that some of the training that we provided live online was redundant with the 1 hour core knowledge training. So we've corrected that. And other than that, I think we've been doing pretty well with our training. Of course, the online training doesn't allow for practice, it allows for some demonstration, but doesn't allow for practice. And that's, I think, the great benefit of on-site or in-person kind of training, so that the practice is done on your own when you participate with the online training. So that's another shortcoming. Of course, the great benefits are that it's very brief, it's very cost-effective, it's very practical. And since our programs, since all PPW programs are manual-based, we have scripts, all you have to do is practice those scripts. So that really helps in reducing the amount of training needed to provide our evidence-based programs. How about reactions to our webinars, like this webinar? So we have, at this point, actually more than 190 people have recently participated in one or more of our webinars. And overall, I would say you can see there 90% said that they liked the webinar a lot, to a great deal, which we're just thrilled about. And 88% that they found it helpful a lot, to a great deal. So not only did you all like what we're doing, but the vast majority of you also found it helpful or useful, so you can take something back to your organization and use it professionally. So that's very, very wonderful to hear that. We're very grateful for that. We're excited about that. But we still want to improve our webinars. We want to improve what we provide for you. These are our free webinars. And then it's a balance. Of course, we can't just do webinars on anything. We want to stay close to our mission, our focus, which is on substance use prevention, plus the, integrating that with the promotion of protective wellness behavior, sports, physical activity, breakfast, nutrition, sleep, stress control, in some cases, spiritual practice, in some cases, social or racial justice, that kind of thing. So these integrated interventions is really what we want to focus on. We really feel that that's an important area for us to make an impact. And we really feel the data is quite clear that young people are experiencing not just risks for substance use, but so many of these other risks that are related to chronic disease over time. Physical inactivity or sedentary lifestyle, poor nutrition, not eating breakfast, not getting enough sleep, not controlling your daily stress, all these things impact the physical and mental health of youth. And so we've got, I think, a rather unique perspective on this, and that is to integrate that with substance use prevention and have a more holistic approach. So webinars, let's take a look at what did you like best about webinars. You can see there was just, well, with 190 reviews, there's it's just dozens and dozens and dozens of wonderful feedback. So you can see them all here. It's very exciting to read this from our perspective, that you feel that what we're providing to you is making a difference for you and your youth and your families. Here's some more wonderful, wonderful comments and reactions, and some of them are just awesome. They really are great. Now, let's talk about some of the negative things in terms of the webinar, which I haven't shown you here, but I'll tell you about. I think just to review, perhaps the most common negative comment has been with regard to technology. I think we've got the audio fixed now. There was a time where, there's always some technology issues, right? Especially when we're trying to reach across to other countries. And part of the technology issues could be on our end. Other times they could be on your end. There could be a weak Wi-Fi signal or dropped Wi-Fi signal. If you could participate in any of our online trainings or webinars, if you could have a hardwired access, that's better, because sometimes Wi-Fi signals fade, or you get a drop in them and then it's hard to get back on. So I would say technology has been another one. So we've had this issue with sound and it was very annoying. I agree with people. The sound would go up and then down and up and then down. And so I think we've got that covered. We did some adjustments in our settings, not just with our hardware here, but also there was a setting within Zoom that allowed you to not have automatic control over your mic. And if you take that automatic control off, you unclick that, that seems to have really made a difference in, the system trying to adjust the volume and then having it go up and down, up and down. So you think it would be the opposite, but that's really what happened. So technology has been the major. Of course, there have been there's always some individuals that want other content. Some want to have more in-depth, some want to have less content, all kinds of things like that. But very, very few negative things or suggestions for improvement. I think by and large, people appreciate the free webinars we give, and they like the certificates. They like when we do send a link to the recording, when we do have PDF, we do have slides, sharing slides. So all of those things are good, and we appreciate doing it. But we're limited too. We can only provide so many webinars. One of the things that pops up every now and then is our CE certificate is not affiliated with any professional association. So, but the good news is most professional associations, whether it be health education or substance use prevention or nursing or whatever, counseling, mental health, etc., most of these will allow for some non-affiliated or pre-approved training, so that you as a certified professional can apply our trainings, your certificates to that certification. And that's all I can tell you about that. You have to look into your certification and your certification board, see what they approve. One of the things that's not as well advertised by us is that I think certainly differentiates us from other substance use prevention program providers, is that we give 10% of our net proceeds to charities. And while we think our work is very important for preventing substance use and promoting the mental and physical health of youth, through your good work and through your purchases, we want to do more. So we take 10% of our net proceeds, that's our profits, if you will, or sales minus expenses, put it another way. And then we give that to some of the best charities in the country and throughout the world that help youth, that help children and families in basic needs, feeding them, clothing them, housing them, educating them. And so, for example, one organization, this is just one example of a number. We've given tens of thousands of dollars over the years since we've been in business doing this. And one very good organization, third quarter, I don't know if that was this year, last year, when it was exactly, but it was we donated to a Child's Hope International to feed hungry orphans. And so there's a little bit of information if you're interested in them. There's a link. I'll send this PDF to you. So of these slides, so if you want to, you can just click on that link and learn more. I think they're a very, very good organization. They received a 4 out of 4-star independent review from a charity navigator, which we use to identify top charities to give. And so I just wanted to thank you for those of you that have purchased any of our programs and training. All of that goes toward, again, that 10% that we share with organizations and agencies. There's a lot of different, but many of them have the word child in it, their children or something like that. So lots of good organizations we can give it to. You can learn more on our website, preventionpluswellness.com. You can scroll down on our homepage, and I think we have a page where we describe some of the organizations we give to. So thank you for that. Now let's delve into some of the outcomes. This was, how do adolescents benefit from the sport? That's the Alcohol Drug Prevention Plus Wellness Program. So now I'm going to share with you how providers, organizations like you throughout the country have implemented their program and have collected outcome data to assess the fidelity and outcomes, program outcomes on their participating youth. So here's one example, a recent one. 109 middle school youth participated and received the sport single session PPW program. This was presented, and why I'm presenting this, by the way, is this is our first data that we got on potential effectiveness of our sport program presented online. So we're very thankful to the McLaren Bay Regional Neighborhood Resource Center in Bay City, Michigan, and Barry Schmidt in particular for partnering with us to do this, to collect this data. This data was actually presented at the CADCA virtual meeting a month or two ago. So this is what we found out in terms of adolescents' behavioral intentions. By the way, behavioral intentions are the most highly predictive measure of future health behaviors. And so we looked at behavioral intentions to engage in healthy behaviors and to avoid substance use all in the next year. You can see here what the data are. 87% at post-test after the program, after this online program, sport program, said that they were very likely to get physical activity most days of the week. That's very positive because most adolescents do not get the required amount of physical activity. 73%, almost 3 out of 4, said they're very likely to get 8 more hours of sleep most nights, and they eat mostly healthy foods. Of course, most adolescents, according to their youth risk behavior survey data, do not eat at breakfast every day and do not get 8 more hours of sleep. So these are really very good findings. 99% said they're very unlikely to use any illegal drugs. 96 to 95, 96% said very unlikely to use any marijuana, e-cigarettes, regular cigarettes, 91% unlikely to drink any alcohol. So very good findings at post-test for this group from the Sport PPW program presented online. Then we also collected data on perceived harmfulness. We know that perceived harmfulness, susceptibility, risk is inversely or negatively related to substance use. In other words, as youth see substances harmful, the more harmful they see it, the less likely they'll use it, and vice versa. So we also, The McLaren group also collected data on perceived harmfulness of regularly using the following substances on their health behaviors. And as you can see there, 98% strongly agree that regular cigarettes and illegal drugs are harmful, and 94 to 95% strongly agree that alcohol, cigarettes, e-cigarettes, and marijuana are harmful. So again, the majority of them thinking that this is harmful substances, each of these substances. And notice there are differences in substances. You know, some substances are viewed as less harmful, and that's due to environmental factors, age, etc. But generally speaking, you'll find alcohol perceived as less harmful. Maybe marijuana and e-cigarettes is less harmful than, let's say, illegal drugs or cigarettes or tobacco use. Then there was a data collection that took place from our participation with the good people in New York City School District. They evaluated the efficacy of sport with 612 high school students. And the results were that there were significant increases in perceived harmfulness and resistant self-efficacy on all 5 of those substances. You can see them under number 3 there, all of those substances. Resistant self-efficacy, another very important indicator of substance use, if young people feel like they can resist offers to use a substance. So let's take a look at the data on perceived harmfulness and self-efficacy. Harmfulness changed from pre-test to post-test. These data were before and after, immediately after the program. Their perceived harmfulness increased. That's what you wanted, from 11 to 20%. And of course, that increase in perceived harmfulness, differed per substance. So you had a largest increase for marijuana. 1 out of 5 youth reported an increase in perceived harmfulness of marijuana. A little less increase for e-cigarettes, and alcohol was in between. Resistant self-efficacy increased from 3% to 10%, a little smaller increase, a little more difficult to change that perception of, can I resist offers to use? But the good news is that it increased from alcohol as a high 10% to e-cigarettes to 5%. So going in the right direction, improvements in perceived harmfulness and self-efficacy, resistant self-efficacy. Behavioral intentions also increased across all of these healthy behaviors. Eating healthy foods each day, getting 8 hours of sleep most nights, getting regular physical activity, and taking action to reduce stress, with the most likely ones increasing for eating healthy and getting sleep. Then we looked at a small group, a sample of 29 students who completed a goal plan, which is part of all prevention plus wellness programs. So these youth actually completed an online goal plan. We wanted to take a look at what kinds of goals were students setting. And so this was a group from White Plains, New York, and you can see the demographics there. They were mostly female, and they were mostly 12 years of age or younger. And so here are the data. Here's what we found from looking at these confidential goal plans. 93% pledged to avoid alcohol and drug use in the next 7 days. That's good news. How about the healthy behaviors? What did they choose? Majority chose getting 8 hours of sleep. That's 38%. That's followed by eating more physical activity. That's followed by eating a healthy breakfast. And lastly, stress control. Probably stress control was less because there's less emphasis on stress control in the sport prevention plus wellness program. Who was identified to co-sign so you can increase motivation for change? Who would co-sign that online goal plan? Mom or dad were identified. Where would it be posted? So they be a plan to monitor that, a bedroom wall or mirror. And students rated, the majority of students rated the goal plan as a positive experience, 5 out of 5 stars, with an average of 4 out of 5 stars. This here was a sport program linked to young and old adolescents' intention to avoid substance use and increase wellness habits. This was a study of high school, middle school students, in the Bronx, New York. And you can see the effects there. Number 2, both high school, middle school students believed it would, that the sport program that they received would, after receiving it, said that they felt it would help them avoid cigarettes, drugs, alcohol in the next 7 months, some to a lot. They also thought it would help them increase healthy behaviors like sleep, physical activity, eating, some to a lot, all positive. Number 4, after receiving the program, high school students and middle school students said, on average, that they had none or little intentions to use any substances, marijuana, alcohol, cigarettes in the next year. Good news. And lastly, they intended some to a lot to get physical activity most days, eat a variety of healthy foods, and get 8 hours of sleep, all going in the right direction. Then we had some more data on the middle school sample. And so here's some data here. We had pre-post data for the middle school sample. We saw that their intentions to engage in these wellness behaviors increased for pre to post test 21 to 27%. And that their intentions to use substances decreased from 16 to 35%. The second bullet talks about perceived friends engaging in behaviors. This is considered a measure of social norms. So what we saw here was from pre-test to post-test that the perception of the friends that engaged in the healthy behaviors increased from 23 to 29%, depending on which behavior you're talking about. And the percentage of their friends using substances decreased from 14 to 32%. The more likely young people think that their peers and friends are not using substances, they'll not use them. But the thing is that we know from social norm research is that young people overinflate. They think, most or all of their friends are using alcohol and cigarettes. Maybe they're thinking most or all of their friends are not getting physical activity, not getting sleep. And so you can see this study indicates that sport is moving those social norms in the right direction. This was another application and evaluation of sports. This was conducted in Sutter County Superintendent of Schools, California. It was 4 high schools, and students believed that the sport program would help them avoid substances, some to a lot, that's good, and it would help them increase their healthy behaviors a little to some. So a little less confident on the healthy behaviors for this group of high school kids in California, but still in the right direction. What are some specific results? High school students said, on average, none to a little intended to use any substances, marijuana, alcohol, cigarettes in the next year. They believe that none to some of their friends use substances. They intended some to a lot to get some behaviors, like engage in some healthy behaviors like physical activity, healthy eat, sleep. That's all good. And youth believe that some to most of their friends were physically active, got sleep, ate a healthy diet. All good findings. I think these are perhaps even the most important findings on prevention plus wellness post-test, the post-survey that we provide to our implementers, which it comes in both a scannable form and an online form. We allow students to identify what did they like best about the prevention plus wellness program. That data is used to promote the program to other youth, to parents, to organizations, to communities, to funding agencies, etc. Awesome stuff. Take a look at the actual words and the writing of students themselves, and you can get a real sense of how prevention plus wellness programs can have a significant impact in the lives of youth and make you as a prevention health provider feel really good about what you're doing and about how you're having an impact on the youth that you're presenting your program to. Also, there's a open-ended question on what did you like least, and that provides you as the prevention implementer to improve your program over time. There was an application implementation of sport in the villages of Hastings-on-Hudson in New York. This was this high school and middle school students. They reported they liked it some to a lot. Middle school students said it would help them to avoid substances some to a lot. High school students said it would help avoid cigarettes some to a lot, and alcohol, drugs a little to some. So a little less effective perhaps on for the older kids on alcohol use. Makes sense because of the prevalence of alcohol use. How about reducing marijuana use intentions and social norms? So all students felt the sport program would increase their physical activity and other healthy behaviors a little to a lot, sort of a broad range there, depending on which behavior you're talking about. The largest pre to post test program changes for both age groups, for high school and middle school, was decreasing the perception that their friends use marijuana. That's very important, that social approval, social norm measure, and increasing attentions to avoid marijuana in the next year. So really good, strong effects on marijuana indicators for these youth. Number 3, other positive effects: decreased intentions to smoke cigarettes, increased intentions to get 8 or more hours of sleep among high school students, and among middle school students, increased intentions to get physical activity most days and talk to their parents about health and fitness. We also had an evaluation of the InShape Prevention Plus Wellness Program. Really interesting application here. InShape is being used in college campuses throughout the country in community settings. But more recently, we had a really fascinating application among the U.S. Airforce personnel, men and women, in Washington State. And this is a pilot study of a group of 30. We collected pre-post test data and looked at post-test data as well, so we could determine change over time and what things look like at post-test. And here are the pre-post improvements on intentions. Again, intentions, the highest, most reliable predictor of future behavior. Half of these participating U.S. Air Force personnel it said that there's an increase in their intentions of getting physical activity most days of the week. You think they'd already be getting physical activity, but they are not. And so this was really an important issue on the base. So half of them saying that in the future they're going to get more physical activity. A third saying that they're going to increase their sleep. Over a third saying they're going to increase their stress control each day. And quite a bit over a half, it decreased their use of e-cigarettes, interestingly enough. Pre-post improvements in social norms and perceived harmfulness. Over 6 and 10 reported a decrease in the perception that their friends drank. That's very important, social norm. 29% decrease in the perception that most of their friends used e-cigarettes. 22% increase in perception that alcohol would harm them. In other words, perceived harmfulness, and 27% increase in perception that, yes, marijuana could harm them. So that was a small, interesting pilot of the InShape program. Here's a evaluation with our partners in Potomac Highlands Guild of 7th and 8th graders in West Virginia that received 3 out of 6 of the Sport 2 Prevention Plus Wellness Program lessons. Now, Sport 2 is our only multi-session program. We have high school, middle school, elementary school version. They use the middle school version. And there's 3 lessons on physical activity, 2 on nutrition, 1 on stress. I don't recall which ones they implemented, but they implemented 3 out of 6. In other words, we're really evaluating the effectiveness of 3 lessons on these middle school students. And you can see the outcomes here. Intentions to engage in wellness behaviors increased, with the largest being almost a third, increasing their intentions to eat a variety of healthy foods every day. And then we have perceptions of their peers who participate, in other words, social norms. And we could see that they also were improved. 11% had an increase of their thinking their friends were physically active, 9% increase in perception of their friends getting sleep, 16% increase in their perception of their friends eating a variety of healthy foods. So those are, let me just stop at this point and highlight what we've looked at today. Number one, there's a large majority of professionals like yourselves, prevention and health professionals from throughout the country and abroad, that attend our webinars and attend our online training and find them enjoyable and helpful, and that keeps us going. And we're, by the way, we're always open for negative, constructive, negative or helpful comments to improve. We're always looking to improve and better serving. Number two, youth and young adults participating in Prevention Plus Wellness program show decreases in substance use risk and increases in wellness behavior indicators for pre to post tests. And so we're excited about those data, and of course they vary by setting, they vary by type of substance, they vary by age group, they vary by what's programs being used and how they're being implemented. But by and large, across all of them, you're seeing a very much the trend of positive indicators in favor of increasing wellness behaviors and decreasing risky substance use behaviors. Thirdly, prevention and health providers across the United States report benefits from participating in our program trainings and webinars and providing prevention plus wellness programs. So here's some recommendations. Number one, please, we recommend providing feedback to us by completing our brief post-webinar and post-online training surveys. So the more feedback you give us, positive comments, love them, constructive suggestions for improvement or what you'd like in the future, love that even better. Number two, when using Prevention Plus Wellness programs, please, please, please use our pre and post surveys. They're scannable surveys, they're online surveys in two different formats. They're there for you as prevention and health professionals so you can see how collect very targeted data on the effectiveness of your program for your youth. You need that feedback so that you can feel good about what you're doing, you can share the successes, and you can improve your program over time. We also have other measures of, we've got a fidelity checklist in our programs, we've got an instructor survey, which is a process measure, all of those critical to making sure your Prevention Plus Wellness program is performing for you, that you're being successful and that you're having the outcomes you have. Lastly, let us know of your successes. We love sharing your successes with others on our social media and our website. So tell us when things are going well. Even more importantly, let us know when things aren't going well or you're having any problems, because we're here to support you for as long as you use your program. So reach out to us. You can find us, I think, most easily on our website, preventionpluswellness.com. There it is, preventionpluswellness.com. And in fact, if you drop in your email, sign up with your email, you'll get weekly notifications of free webinars like this one and other resources. So there's our contact information. Jot it down, preventionpluswellness.com. Our email, our easiest email is info@preventionpluswellness.com. And there's our phone number here in St. Augustine, Florida, 904-472-5022. And remember, I'll be sending you a PDF of these slides, so you'll have this information. Share the slides. You'll get a link to this recorded session. Share that, and you'll get a certificate for 1 hour CEU. Okay? I'm going to stop and see if anybody has any questions at this point. We've got the chat space. We've got those wonderful people from Indonesia again. Thank you guys for joining us. If you have questions, if you have comments, if there's something I presented that wasn't clear, now's the time to type it in your chat space or your Q&A space. Let me know if you have anything, or maybe you want to share something, how things are going in your area with regard to youth and young adult prevention or wellness promotion. If you could share something that other people can learn from, or if you have a question, not just for me, but for the other prevention providers online, now's the time to share. And so, as always, thank you for the tremendous work and the difference that you make in regions in your area for children, for adolescents, for young adults, for families. God bless you for what you do. You are prevention and health really heroes because you're making a difference. It's easy for us to do this stuff. It's the challenge comes when when the rubber hits the road, really for you guys, because you're doing the work, you're doing the hard stuff to take programs like ours and to provide it to those young people. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes persistence, it takes resources. So whatever we can do to help you, let me know. The more youth receive our evidence-based screening and brief interventions, the more likely we'll have a better world and save some youth and help them be healthier physically and mentally. So if there's any way we can help, let us know. All right, I don't see any other questions. You guys, where you're at, evening, morning, afternoon, thank you. Have a great day. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves, your children, your family, your community, and stay in touch. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.